Distinguished delegates, good morning. Welcome to the fifth and last day of COP5 of the Minamata Convention. I would like to inform you that the agenda items we plan to consider this plenary are: first, we take item 3, election of officers. Then item 4B, Mercury-added products and manufacturing processes, amendments to annexes A and B. Then we will reopen item 3A, supply sources and trade, and we will conclude with item 4J, national reporting. I'm pleased to announce you that all contact groups have finalized their work, and I will invite the co-chairs of the respective contact groups to report on the outcomes when we open their respective agenda items. I invite now the Secretariat to inform you about any housekeeping businesses.
Thank you. The following CRPs are available on the website. CRP 8, containing draft decision on information on the economic and technical feasibility of mercury-free catalysts in vinyl chloride monomer production. CRP 9 and its addendum 1, containing the draft decision on amendments to annexes A and B. CRP 10, containing a draft decision on preparation of a report on cosmetics listed in Part 1 and Annex A, and CRP 11, containing a draft decision on national reporting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. I now invite the meeting to resume its consideration of agenda item 2C on election of officers. We will use our time now to elect or confirm members to serve on our behalf on the Bureau, the Implementation and Compliance Committee, and the SIP Governing Board. I will start with election of the Bureau. For the new Bureau will serve the intersessional period and the 6th meeting of the Conference of the Parties. The Secretariat will remind us now the relevant sections of the rules of procedures. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Paragraph 2 of Rule 22 of the Rules of Procedure for the Conference of the Parties, as adopted by decision MC1/1, sets out the following procedures for the election of the officers of the Bureau of the Conference of the Parties. At the second and subsequent ordinary meeting of the Conference of the Parties, a president and 9 vice presidents, one of whom shall act as rapporteur, shall be elected from among the representatives of the parties present at the meeting. These officers shall serve as Bureau of the Conference of the Parties. Each of the 5 United Nations regional groups shall be represented by 2 Bureau members. These officers shall commence their term of office at the closure of the meeting at which they are elected and remain in office until the closure of the following ordinary meeting of the Conference of the Parties, including for any intervening extraordinary meeting. At its 5th meeting, in accordance with Rule 22 of the Rules of Procedure, the Conference of the Parties is to elect the Bureau for its 6th meeting, a president and 9 vice presidents, one of whom is to act as rapporteur from among the representatives of the parties present at the meeting. To that end, 2 nominations from each UN regional group has been submitted to the Secretariat. In accordance with both paragraph 3 of Rule 22 of the Rules of Procedure and past practice, for the purposes of regional rotation, the President of the Bureau for the 6th meeting of the Conference of the Parties is expected to be elected from among the Latin American and Caribbean states. The chair of the Implementation and Compliance Committee is to be a member ex officio of the Bureau. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. We are electing a president and 9 vice presidents, one of whom shall act as rapporteur. I ask the Secretariat now to display the nomination of the COP6 Bureau. Thank you. These are the nominations. Are there any objections to these nominations? I see no objections. So the members are elected. Congratulations. It is my honor now to declare that Osvaldo Patricio Alvarez Perez from Chile will be the president of the incoming Bureau. Congratulations. Many thanks to the nominees for agreeing to take this responsibility. It will be great, I can tell you, for those who never had this experience. And I suggest that the rapporteur of the 6th meeting of the Conference of the Party is designated by the Bureau during the intersessional period. Moving on, we are now at the stage of discussing about the Implementation and Compliance Committee nominations. The Secretariat will remind us of the relevant sections of Rule of Procedures. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Pursuant to paragraphs 1 and 2 of Rule 3 of the Rules of Procedure of the Implementation and Compliance Committee, as adopted in decision MC 2/4, the committee is to consist of 15 members nominated by parties and elected by the Conference of the Parties, with due consideration for equitable regional representation based on the 5 United Nations regional groups. Paragraph 3 of Rule 3 of the Rules of Procedure for the committee sets out the following procedures for the election of members of the committee. The first members of the committee shall serve from the end of the first ordinary meeting of the Conference of the Parties until the end of the third ordinary meeting of the Conference of the Parties. At its third ordinary meeting, the Conference of the Parties shall re-elect 10 members from among the first members of the committee for 1 term and elect the 5 new members for 2 terms. The Conference of the Parties shall, at each ordinary meeting thereafter, elect for 2 terms new members to replace those members whose period of office is about to expire. At its 4th meeting, the Conference of the Parties elected for 2 terms 9 new members of the committee from the following countries: Austria, Bulgaria, Canada, Colombia, Gabon, Iran, Montenegro, Suriname, United Republic of Tanzania. The remaining 6 members were re-elected for 1 term, starting from the closure of the 4th meeting of the Conference of the Parties until the closure of the 5th meeting of the Conference of the Parties. Therefore, at its 5th meeting, in accordance with Rule 3 of the Rules of Procedure of the Committee, the Conference of the Parties is to elect for 2 terms 6 new members of the Implementation and Compliance Committee to replace those members whose period of office is about to expire. Nominations from each United Nations regional group have been submitted to the Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. We're electing now the members of the Implementation and Compliance Committee, and I ask the Secretariat to display the nominations for the Implementation and Compliance Committee. Thank you. Is there any objection to our elect these members? I see none. The members are elected. Congratulations. Just a kind reminder that we all thank you for your engagement and assuming the responsibilities for this job. And finally, we are now going to the SIP Governing Board. The Secretariat will remind us of the relevant sections of Rules of Procedure. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Pursuant to paragraph 1 of Rule 3 of its Rules of Procedure, the Governing Board of the specific international program is to consist of 10 members. Each of the 5 United Nations regions is to nominate 2 members through their respective Bureau representatives. In accordance with paragraph 2 of Rule 3, the first members of the Bureau were to serve until the 3rd meeting of the Conference of the Parties. Thereafter, the members were to be nominated every 2 years by regional groups and their membership confirmed by the Conference of the Parties. At its 5th meeting, the Conference of the Parties is to confirm, based on the nominations received from the regional groups, 10 members of the Governing Board for the following term, to serve from the closure of the 5th meeting of the Conference of the Parties until the closure of the 6th meeting of the Conference of the Parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. So now we are confirming the members of the SIP Governing Board, and I'm asking the Secretariat to display the nominations. Thank you. Is there any objection to our confirm these members? I see none. The members are confirmed. Congratulations. Now, I would like to invite the COP5 to return to agenda item 4B on Mercury-added products and manufacturing processes, amendment to annexes A and B. You will recall that on Monday, we established a contact group with the mandate to address the following issues. Phase-out date of the 4 mercury-added products listed in square brackets in paragraph 5 of decision MC 4/3. Proposed amendments to Annex A, production of polyurethane using mercury-containing catalysts, to Part 1 of Annex B, technical and economic feasibility of mercury-free alternatives to 2 manufacturing processes listed in Annex B, Part 2, mercury-free alternatives for the production of vinyl chloride monomer and sodium or potassium methylate or ethylate have become technically and economically feasible. The contact group was also asked to provide for the consideration of the plenary a draft decision of the COP on the above matters. The contact group has provided for our considerations 3 CRPs that contain draft decisions on these issues. I now like to ask the Secretariat to introduce the CRPs. You have the floor.
Thank you, President. I am pleased to introduce the conference room papers relevant to this agenda item. There are 3 CRPs and 1 addendum, CRP 8, 9, 9 add 1, and 10. CRP 9 sets out the amendments to annexes A and B proposed to be adopted at the scope. This CRP is to be read together with CRP 9/1, which presents 3 additional paragraphs and 1 revised paragraph. It includes paragraph number 1 bis, which will be sorted out when decision is included in the meeting report. This CRP contains amendments to Annex A Part 1, Annex A Part 2, and Annex B Part 1. It also notes the progress made in the deliberation of COP on further amendment to Annex A Part 1 and Part 2. I would like also to note one editorial error in CRP 9, footnote number in the table under paragraph 1, where the footnote number, original footnote number 1 in the entry on cosmetics was inadvertently changed to A. So there is a confusion in this, but the footnote A should be read as footnote 1. CRP 8 presents the process to develop a report for COP6 to consider the technical and economic feasibility of mercury-free alternatives regarding vinyl chloride monomer production. CRP 10 presents the process to develop a report on the challenges that parties face in addressing mercury-containing cosmetics for the consideration at COP6. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. Before we start our consideration of the CRPs and the draft decision, I ask the 2 co-chairs, Itsuki Kuroda of Japan and Juliette Petlen of Lesotho, if they wish to make any comments. I see Lesotho, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I am pleased to report that the contact group has finalized all items that were referred to it by the President's mandate, which was issued on Monday this week. The contact group considered a proposal on cosmetics that had been developed by some parties, and I am pleased to report that the group was able to agree on the text of the draft decision that is presented as CRP 10. The group then considered the proposal for measures associated with dental amalgam in Part 2 of Annex A. The group was able to agree to the text for one of the proposed elements. Despite considerable discussions, the group was unable to agree to the second element of the text, nor was it able to agree on listing and phase-out date of Part 1 on dental amalgam. However, the group recognized the value of the proposal and agreed that the proposal should be considered further at the next meeting of the Conference of Parties. To that effect, the agreed issues on dental amalgam are reflected in CRP 9 and the deferred items in CRP 9/1, and I therefore request the plenary to consider CRP 9 together with CRP 9/1 in order to avoid any misunderstanding. The contact group agreed on the text regarding vinyl chloride monomer, which is presented as CRP 8. Finally, Madam President, my co-chair and I would like to recognize the high level of collaboration and the constructive spirit that was evident throughout the session of the group. And we sincerely thank the participants for their contributions. We also like to thank the Secretariat for their guidance and for supporting the work of this contact group. And if you will allow me, Madam President, I would like to pass over to my co-chair to also express her sentiments. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Lesotho. Japan.
Thank you very much. Before expressing sentiment, I thought I would deliver the more detailed explanation of the CLP, but since my co-chair had already expressed, I would like to ask the President and also the Secretariat if I need to deliver additional information on the progress of the group.
Yes, of course, you are most welcome to express your view of the overall progress during the week.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
As my co-chair had already expressed, our group have made tremendous progress. And firstly, I would like to introduce Part 1 of Annex A. And Part 1 of Annex A has successfully included all the items which was carried forward from COP4 and also proposed for the consideration at COP5, excluding 2 items, namely switch and relay and dental amalgam. Switch and relays expect confirmation from one party, while dental amalgam did not reach an agreement of the addition. Secondly, Part 2 of Annex 2, there are 2 proposals made by African region. One is cosmetics, and also second is dental amalgam. We have agreed to move the cosmetic proposal to the standalone CLP, which has just introduced as CLP 10. As for the proposal made by African region on dental amalgam, there are 2 texts proposed, and one was agreed within the group, while another text did not reach an agreement. Thirdly, Part 1 of Annex B, we have successfully added production of polyurethane using mercury-containing catalyst with the phase-out date of 2025. Fourthly, we have established the feasibility, technical and economical feasibility on the sodium and potassium methylate and ethylate, while we did not reach the consensus on the establishment of feasibility on vinyl chloride monomer. And then we produced a standalone CLP, which was explained as CLP 8. All the agreed items was included in CLP 9 as the Secretariat introduced, and also 9-1. And if I may take another minute, I would like to deliver the congratulations to all the participants who was involved in this group. And also, I would like to express my sincere gratitude. I am aware that I made the discussion move forward strongly with my Japanese mind that I had to finish punctually. But also what I had in my mind was that all the mandates has to be considered thoroughly and also effectively so that nobody needed to go home empty-handed. So since this was the very first time for me to chair, I really appreciated that all the help and also constructive intervention made by parties and also observers. So thank you very much for all the participants' time today, and thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Juliette and Itsuki, for your report. And again, thanks to all the participants of the contact group for your hard work and dedication. And as you can see, I think I used some of the Japanese approach in my first 2 days when I was counting the minutes, but I think it turned out very well for everybody. So now let me turn to CRP 9 and its addendum. I note that one party requested time to consult its capital regarding the brackets in the proposed entry on switches and relays. I turn now to India, and I ask, can we remove the bracketed text?
No.
Except
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I would like to congratulate all the parties for reaching to an agreement by consensus on several items to be included in Annexure A as well as in Annexure B. I extend my congratulations also to the co-chairs of the contact group as well as the Secretariat for steering the deliberations and negotiations in the developing consensus. Consensus has been achieved for phase out of 5 items relating to lighting products and 1 item relating to cosmetics. However, India would like to retain the text except for research and development purposes in the item to be added in Part 1 of Annex A relating to phase out of very high accuracy capacitance and loss measurement bridges and high frequency radio frequency switches and relays in monitoring and control instruments with a maximum mercury content of 20 mg per bridge, switch or relay. With this, India would agree to phase out date of 2025. Regarding listing of dental amalgam for phase out, India, as many other countries, does not agree to the phase out proposal. India has agreed to additional measures relating to dental amalgam in Part 2 of Annexure A. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, India. I note that your delegation cannot agree to delete the bracketed text. And now I turn to the floor. Can the 2 sets of brackets around the text, except those used for research and development purposes, and the date be lifted? And now I'm opening the floor for comments. Okay, I'm going to repeat my question. Can the 2 sets of brackets around the text, I'm quoting, except those used for research and development purposes, end quoting, be removed and the date be lifted in one of the entries of CRP 9? I see United States, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. The United States would be very pleased to see the removal of both sets of brackets from this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to be very clear, your proposal is to remove only the brackets, not the text, right?
We would be happy to lift both sets of brackets.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And now I propose to adopt the CRP 9 with the brackets lifted. Are there any objections to this proposal? I see none. It is so decided. Thank you very much. Okay, let us now move to CRP 8 on vinyl chloride monomer. Noting that the contact group agreed on a clean text, I propose to adopt the decision as set out in CRP 8. Are there any objections to my proposal? I see none. It is so decided. Now let's move on to CRP 10 on cosmetics. Noting that the contact group agreed on a clean text, I propose to adopt the decision as set out in CRP 10. Are there any objections to my proposal? I see Antigua and Barbuda. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is not an objection, and certainly in very much support of this, but I wanted to indicate the importance of data, particularly as it relates to analysis of cosmetics for the occurrence of mercury and other elements of concern, and would hope that the reports that are to be put forward would certainly include the data that has already been generated and that will be generated over the next few years. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Antigua and Barbuda. So I'm going to ask again, can we adopt the decision as set out in CRP 10? I see no objections. It is so decided. Thank you. And with this, we complete the consideration of agenda item 4B. Now, I would like to propose you to reopen agenda item 4A on mercury supply and trade and come back to the draft decision on supply sources and trade contained in document 3. Yesterday, we considered the decision in plenary and we made very good progress. The text of the decision was cleared and only one issue remained to be solved with respect to the additional paragraph 5E proposed by Colombia. I now invite the Secretariat to display the two alternative texts for paragraph 5E. Can you make it a little bit bigger? And with this, I'm going to open the floor for comments. Colombia, please.
Gracias, señora Presidente.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Oh well, we have held consultations on 5E and on the alternative paragraph, which we call ALT. And so we found a new wording, which I would like to suggest to you now. And I believe that this new paragraph should not raise any objections on the part of the countries who objected against the alternative E. So 5E alternative to facilitate information exchange of any trade-related information that the Secretariat has received, with regard to which the participating countries haven't raised any objections in terms of sharing. So, slowly.
Of any, so yeah, you would just delete, exactly. So you would delete exchange, there, so information, delete, the exchange of any information, sorry, of any trade-related information, so you would delete the language that was in brackets. Yeah, and you would delete everything up to the Secretariat. And then instead of the period after Article 3, there would be a comma. And would follow, and which the parties concerned have not objected to sharing with other parties. Full stop.
Thank you very much, Colombia. So having in mind the new proposal, the floor is still open for your comments and feedbacks. And I see Japan.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and thank you very much for the colleagues from Colombia. We had a talk yesterday, and he had Colombia incorporated our concern in the text, so we can accept Colombia's proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Japan. I don't see any other requests for the floor, so I'm going to ask you if we can accept the track changes to have a clean paragraph, clean text, and delete the little e, the first one. Thank you. So now we have a clean text here, and I see Guinea followed by Australia. Not followed by Australia, only Guinea.
Bien, merci Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe that the little e in the text tries to emphasize the aspect of mercury from primary production, primary mining production. And if this paragraph is accepted, that there would not be any difference here. Well, regardless of whether our country is a party to the convention or not, it's a trade in mercury. Would that apply to all categories of mercury, my question is, or only to primary production? Thank you.
Thank you, Guinea. Guinea, I think I will give the Secretariat the floor to answer your question with a specific comment. So you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. So if I understand correctly, the question is whether the scope of the draft decision when it relates to trade, is it only trade from primary mercury mining or is it trade in mercury, elemental mercury? If this is the question, the scope of the draft decision is trade in elemental mercury. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. I don't see any request for the floor. And considering that the issue left from yesterday was resolved, I propose that we adopt the decision as shown on the screen, pending confirmation by the Program of Work and Budget Contact Group that any budgetary implications not yet foreseen in the budget for the next 2 years has been taken into account. Are there any objections to my proposal? I see none. It is so decided. Thank you. I have Indonesia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Indonesia considers this resolution on mercury supply sources in trade as very important, as we believe it does provide an initial way to achieve the objective of the Bali Declaration on combating the illegal trade in mercury, as we agreed in COP 4.2 in Bali, Indonesia. Hence, on behalf of Indonesia, as the initial sponsor of the Bali Declaration, Indonesia greatly commends and appreciates the work of the Secretariat in preparing the document and the support of the Madam President and the parties for its deliberation and adoption. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Indonesia, for your kind words. Thank you. Dear colleagues, before we move on, I would still like to come back to agenda item 4B. There is still one matter that needs to be decided under this agenda, and more specifically, it's the addendum to CRP 9. Before we decide on this document, allow me to give the floor to the Secretariat. You have the floor.
Good day. Thank you, Madam President. I would like to draw your attention to Addendum 1 to CRP 9 and the first paragraph where there are still brackets remaining in this first paragraph, and to explain that it was editorial mistake to keep the brackets, and those brackets will be removed should the meeting agrees on adoption of this addendum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. And with this, I would like to propose you to adopt the addendum of CRP 9 with editorial clarification as presented by the Secretariat. Are there any objections to my proposal? I see none. It is so decided. Thank you very much. Now let's move on and reopen agenda item 4J, national reporting. You will recall that when we opened consideration on this item on Tuesday, a few parties indicated they had comments on some aspects of the draft reporting format, the associated draft guidance, and the draft decision. I established a Friends of the President group on reporting and asked it to consider any unsolved issues, including those raised by parties in plenary, with a view to finalizing the draft decision on reporting. I asked that Paulina Riquelme from Chile and Anik Bedouin from Canada to facilitate the group's work. Although I identified several parties that had indicated in their interventions that they had comments on specific proposed amendments to the reporting format contained in document UNEP/MC/COP5/15/add1 and to the draft guidance contained in document UNEP/MC/COP5/15/add2, I also made clear that the group was open to any party that wished to participate. The co-chair reported back to the plenary on Wednesday morning that the group had finished its work. The outcome of the group's work was posted on the COP5/contact group tab of the website Wednesday morning. The outcome of the group's work is now contained in CRP 11. I trust that you had time to access and read the CRP. You will note that the proposed revision to the reporting format that had been presented in the result of the Friends of the President consideration on national reporting are few, namely reporting format questions 3.3, 3.4, 4.3, 17.1, 18.1, and 19.1. You will note also that few edits to the reporting guidance are also included in that CRP. As regards the proposed draft decision, the suggested changes to the draft decision contained in document UNEP/MC/COP5/15 are few, and I will ask the Secretariat to explain them. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Let me introduce the changes that were agreed in the Friends of the President group, and these are in paragraph 4 that starts with call on parties that have not provided complete information and so on, to delete the last phrase of that paragraph, namely, as required in the reporting format. So the entire paragraph will read, calls on parties that have not provided complete information on the number of facilities and on the estimated amount of mercury used in processes listed in Part 2 of Annex B to the Convention to do so as soon as possible. And then in paragraph 7, at the end of paragraph, we would add, the group agreed to add the word and due to the editorial omission that has not been retained in the CRP you see in front of you, but will be added should the meeting agree to adopt the decision. And lastly, the Friends of the President group agreed to delete footnotes. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. Are there any comments on the proposed changes to the reporting format and the reporting guidance? The floor is open. I have no request for the floor. And with this, please allow me again to thank all parties who have demonstrated great flexibility and spirit of compromise to come together on this very important matter. I propose that the COP adopts a decision as contained in CRP 11, including the changes to the reporting questions as contained in document 5/15/add1, and as amended by Annex 1 to CRP 11, and the reporting format as contained in document 5/15/add2, and as amended by Annex 2 of CRP 11. Are there any objections to adopting this decision? I see none. It is so decided. Thank you very much. And with this, we complete the consideration of agenda item 4J. And also concludes the work of this morning. But before we adjourn, please let me request the contact group on budget to still do some work, and that is to review the remaining decisions that have not yet been reviewed by the group. I invite you to meet at 2 p.m. in room C. Thank you very much for this very good start of the day, and I adjourn the meeting until 3 p.m.